Hotep, Egyptian and Libico-Berber glyphs under the Sphinx ear, acknowledges that the Great Pyramid was a tomb. Hotep is the Egyptian greeting. What we're going to talk about today is a very interesting feature of the pyramids and the Sphinx. Often when we look at the Sphinx, we see a great mystery. But is the Great Sphinx holding secrets that are even more detailed than those that we already think it has? Konstantin Busov wrote a very interesting article on the role of the Great Pyramid in producing light. Although the Great Pyramid may have been a source of light in the Nile Valley, an inscription under the right ear of the Sphinx indicates that the Great Pyramid was also an important tomb of an important Egyptian elite that once rested in the sarcophagus in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. There are mysteries surrounding the Sphinx. Curtis Penn, an independent researcher, recently posted a picture of glyphs under the right ear of the Sphinx on Facebook. Penn became interested in the glyphs under the Sphinx ear after reading Gardner's Egyptian grammar. He noticed that the glyphs appeared to be a single stroke and a glyph that represented a flag or an axe. Reading these glyphs in Egyptian, Penn realized that the hieroglyphs spelled out the words one netter. In English, one netter means one God. This was an amazing discovery by Penn. Upon seeing the Sphinx glyphs, I noticed that instead of only 2 signs under the Sphinx ear, there were really 4 signs written in the Libico-Berber script. The Libico-Berber signs read Iyupope. The Libico-Berber signs are related to Thinite writing. The Thinite signs are the origin of scripts for many later African and River Valley writing systems around the world, which I discuss in my book, Archaeological Decipherment of Ancient Writing Systems. The Libico-Berber inscriptions were written in Malinki Bambara. The meaning of Iyupope is, thou pure hemisphere tomb on the flatlands. I'll repeat that. Iyupope means, thou pure hemisphere tombs on the flatlands. This is interesting because we find that behind the Sphinx, we see pyramids, or hemisphere tombs on the flat land. The Libico-Berber script includes many signs which are different from Semitic signs. Although these signs are not found in the Berber alphabet, they are found in the Indus Valley, Linear A, and Egyptian pottery signs. J.T. Cornelius illustrated how the Libico-Berber signs are identical to the Egyptian, South Indian, and Linear A writing. Moreover, a cursory comparison of the Thinite pot marks from Upper and Lower Egypt discovered by Petrie and Van de Brink compare favorably to the Libico-Berber signs. At Oued-Mertetek, there's an engraving of an oviceprid, sheep or goat, with an ancient Libico-Berber inscription placed under the figure. In my book, Archaeological Decipherment of Ancient Writing Systems, I discuss how the ancient origin of Libico-Berber writing is further confirmed by the common symbols shared by the Oued-Tek inscriptions and contemporary 3rd millennium writing systems in Mesopotamia, Crete, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. This, along with the same patina for the goat-sheep figure and the Oued-Mertetek inscription, is congruent with the determination that the Oued-Mertetek inscription is 5,000 years old. Libico-Berber inscriptions are found throughout the Sahara. Many of the Libico-Berber inscriptions are associated with horses. Henri Lehout has published many of these inscriptions from the Air region of Africa. Sanuni has observed that the horse period dates between 1,500 and 500 BC. The horse depicted in the Sahara are not the Arabian horse typified by the Berber and Tuareg horsemen. De Sandres noted that Berber horses drew the Saharan, Barbary horses drew the Saharan chariots. This horse is smaller than the Arabian horse, which were not introduced into Africa to the Christian era. The lack of similarity between the Saharan and Eastern chariots and the horse that drew them indicate the unique nature of Saharan civilization. The phonetic meaning of the signs under the Sphinx ear, reading from left to right, is one netter, Iupope. Translated, these glyphs read, "Thou pure hemisphere tomb on the flat land of the one God." I repeat, they read, "Thou pure hemisphere tomb on the flatlands of the one God." It would appear that the single stroke on the Sphinx glyph was meant to be read twice, first in association with Iupope, and secondly, one netter. This would explain why the accent is made laying down. The glyphs on the Sphinx is appropriate because when you view the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid of Giza, the pyramid sits on flat lands. And the discovery of the sarcophagus of Khufu, or Cheops, proves the pyramid was a tomb. Egyptian literature explains why the glyphs are under the Sphinx right ear. The glyphs were made under the right ear because it is explained in the Pert Im Heru, or Book of the Dead. In chapter 42 of the Book of the Dead, it speaks of the ear being the Wupewat, a wolf for perceptive hearing. Wupewat in the Book of the Dead is the opener of the way, the messenger of God. Thusly, the ear represents the Sphinx method of communication with the gods. The builders of the Sphinx wrote these glyphs under the Sphinx ear so the gods might hear the prayer represented by the glyphs. Mr. Penn says there was a legend that when the Sphinx was buried under the sand, people who visited the monument would whisper into the ear of the Sphinx, praying God would answer their prayers. In summary, the glyphs under the Sphinx ear illustrate that they were engraved to celebrate the tomb of Khufu or Cheops. The placement of the Sphinx and pyramid complex was a model for Hor Im Akhet Heru, the mountain of light where the sun sets. It represents the place was like a mountain of light on the horizon.